The night before my wedding, I should have been ecstatic. My fiancé, Derek, and I had been together for 3 years. We had twin 1-year-old daughters, and everything seemed to be falling into place. I'd been waiting for this day for what felt like forever, dressing up in the perfect gown, saying our vows in front of everyone who mattered to us. It was supposed to be the start of the rest of our lives. I had even convinced myself that all of the early disagreements we had about having kids were behind us. Derek had been incredibly supportive throughout my pregnancy, helping with the girls, and I thought we were on the same page about everything. I felt so lucky. But the truth was, a part of me was still nervous. As I lay in bed that night, talking to Derek on the phone, I felt all my fears fade away. His voice was so warm and reassuring. He talked about how excited he was for the ceremony, how beautiful our daughters looked in their little dresses. I closed my eyes, imagining us walking down the aisle together. It was perfect. "I love you," he said, and it was like hearing it for the first time again, even though he said it every day. My heart fluttered. "I love you too," I replied, my voice filled with emotion. There was a pause before he added, "I can't wait to spend the rest of my life with you and the girls." I felt a lump in my throat. It was all I had ever wanted. I waited, my heart racing, for him to say goodnight. But instead, I heard the sound of the line still open. I thought maybe he was just quiet, waiting for me to hang up, but then I heard a voice in the background. Derek's voice. "Yeah, I guess I'm just going to have to go through with it. I mean, it's all about the money anyway, right? I don't even know why we're bothering with this. I don't really want to marry her. Not for love anyway." I froze. My hand, still holding the phone, suddenly felt cold, and the air seemed to freeze around me. "What do you mean? It's about the money," came another voice. This time, it was his father. "I don't know, Dad. It's not like I have a choice, right? If I don't marry her, I'm screwed. She's got the house and the kids. And what? Am I just supposed to give that up? I've got to marry her to keep everything in line." My stomach churned. I couldn't breathe. I wanted to hang up, but I couldn't move. His father responded with a cold, almost businesslike tone. "You've got to be the man in this, Derek. You're the one who's responsible. You've got to do this for the family." A tight, suffocating knot formed in my chest. I wasn't sure what to do. I wanted to shout, to confront him, but I couldn't. The words felt like they were stuck in my throat. How could this be happening? How could the man I loved, the man I thought I knew, be so different? Derek sighed. I know. I just wish I didn't have to pretend. But it's just easier this way. It's easier to keep everyone happy." The line went silent for a few seconds. My head spun. I could feel the tears gathering in my eyes. This was the man I was about to marry, the man I trusted with my heart and my children. And yet, here he was, talking about me like I was just some kind of transaction. I could hear his father's voice one more time. "Just make sure you don't mess this up. You've got everything lined up. Don't screw it up now." My heart was racing, and my whole body felt like it was on fire. This wasn't what I had imagined. I didn't know what to do, what to think, or how to feel. Was this all just a game to him? Was I just another part of his plan? I didn't know how long I sat there, the phone pressed against my ear. The conversation had stopped, and I could feel the seconds stretching into eternity. I couldn't believe it. How had I not seen this? How had I been so blind? And then, suddenly, I heard Derek's voice again. "Well, good night then. I love you." The words were empty now. They didn't sound the same. They didn't feel the same. "I love you too," I said, but it felt hollow. There was no warmth in my voice. I couldn't even force myself to believe it. The phone line finally clicked off, and the world around me was silent. My dream wedding was unraveling right before my eyes. And in that moment, I knew I couldn't go through with it. I wasn't sure what to do, but I knew one thing for sure. I had to figure it out for myself. For my girls. But first, I needed to think. I needed to process what I had just heard. And most of all, I needed to understand how I had been so wrong about him. I stared at the phone screen, the faint hum of the now silent line hanging in the air. His voice echoed in my head, Derek's words slicing through me like a knife. "It's all about the money anyway, right? I don't really want to marry her. Not for love anyway." The words felt like poison, crawling through my veins, numbing everything they touched. I stood frozen, my heart pounding in my chest. The night was supposed to be full of anticipation, the excitement of tomorrow's wedding. But now, it felt like a cruel joke. My hands were shaking as I lowered the phone from my ear, my mind struggling to comprehend what I had just heard. I didn't know what to do, didn't know where to turn. I'd been so sure of everything, so certain that our life together was built on love and trust. But now, it all felt like a facade. I heard the soft rustle of the girls in the next room, their little voices a reminder of the life we were building. The life I thought was built on mutual respect and love. But now, I couldn't help but question everything. Was it all a lie? Was I just the perfect woman to fit into his family's plans? A wife for convenience, a mother for show, and nothing more. Suddenly, the weight of it all hit me. Derek wasn't the man I thought he was. He wasn't the man I had fallen in love with. He was someone who saw me and our family as a transaction, just a stepping stone to keep his life and his finances in order. I sat down on the edge of the bed, my breath coming in shaky gasps. The room felt smaller, suffocating. The walls seemed to close in around me as my mind raced with thoughts. I didn't know how I had missed the signs, how I had been so blind to the truth. He didn't love me. He didn't love our children. He loved what we represented, a way to keep his life comfortable. I glanced at the clock. Tomorrow, I was supposed to marry him. Tomorrow, I was supposed to stand before our friends and family and pledge my life to him. And yet, I didn't even know who he really was anymore. Without thinking, I grabbed my phone, scrolling quickly through my contacts. I needed to get away. I needed to clear my head. I couldn't stay here, not with the way everything had just fallen apart. I had to make a decision. I called a nearby hotel, securing a room under a false name. I wasn't ready to face anyone, especially not Derek. I couldn't face him, not with the way he had just shattered my world. I moved quickly, packing a small bag for me and the girls. The house felt too quiet, too heavy with the weight of my emotions. I slipped into the girls' room, gently lifting them out of their cribs. They were still too young to understand, but I wasn't sure I could stay another minute, pretending everything was fine. I needed to escape. The car ride to the hotel was a blur. I didn't know if it was the adrenaline or the numbness taking over, but I couldn't focus on anything other than the gnawing ache in my chest. My heart felt broken in a way that was almost too much to bear. I had given him everything, and in return, I had been treated like a convenience. At the hotel, I checked in and made my way to the room. I sat on the edge of the bed, the girls nestled between me and the pillows. I kissed their tiny heads, tears threatening to spill over as I tried to make sense of everything. The pain was unbearable. What had I done? What had I missed? I couldn't stop the tears from falling, one after another, as I clutched my girls close to me. I couldn't believe I had been so foolish. I had trusted him. I had loved him. And in return, I had been discarded. The night stretched on, and I spent hours lying there, the darkness pressing down on me, my heart aching with every passing minute. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, the image of Derek's voice saying those words would flood my mind, and I would be wide awake again. The wedding. Tomorrow. It was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, but now it was a reminder of how much I had lost. My trust. My self-respect. My future. The pain was consuming me, and I didn't know how to move forward. How could I walk down that aisle tomorrow, knowing everything I had believed in was a lie? I stayed awake most of the night, the tears never fully stopping. I wasn't sure when I finally fell asleep, but when I woke up, the sun was just beginning to rise. The light streaming through the curtains felt too bright, too sharp. My mind was clouded with confusion and hurt, but one thing was clear. I couldn't go back to him. I couldn't go back to the man who didn't care about me, about us. I had to move forward, even if it meant walking away from everything I thought I knew. I woke up the next morning to the sound of my daughters babbling in their cribs, their voices familiar and soothing. But despite their bright energy, there was an ache deep within me that I couldn't shake. The world outside the hotel room seemed so normal, so untouched by the storm inside my mind. I had walked away from everything the night before, the wedding, Derek, the life we were supposed to build together. The weight of the betrayal I had overheard felt heavier in the light of day. I stared at the hotel room's blank walls, the silence too loud in my ears. The wedding, which was supposed to be tomorrow, now felt like a distant memory. I could already feel the grief creeping in, but there was also something else, something I hadn't expected. There was power in the decision I had made. Derek hadn't just let me down. He had shattered the foundation of our relationship. The trust one thought we had was a lie, built on a weak foundation of financial convenience and obligation, not love. He hadn't just lied to me. He had lied to himself too. pretending that what we had was real, when all along, it was just a way to appease his parents. I felt numb, yet alive in a way that made my chest tight. The reality of what I'd overheard was still sinking in. I hadn't been part of his dream, part of his future. I was just an obligation he had to fulfill. And now, I was standing on the edge of an uncertain future, looking down at a chasm that felt both terrifying and freeing. I pulled my phone from my bag, my hands unsteady as I tapped the screen. I had been avoiding it, unsure of what to do. But I knew I couldn't keep hiding. I needed to move forward, to step into my new life. One that was about me and my children, not about someone else's financial leverage or emotional manipulation. I started by blocking Derek's number. My heart hurt as I saw his name on the screen, but it wasn't just the heartache. It was the realization that I couldn't allow him to have any more control over me. I was done. Done with his lies. Done with his parents. Done with pretending that our life had a future. Then, I blocked his family. I wasn't ready to face them. I wasn't ready for their judgment, their questions, their expectations. They didn't know me. They didn't know us. And in that moment, I realized I didn't need them to. The sound of the girls laughing in the other room pulled me from my thoughts. They were still too young to understand any of this, but they were my world now. They were all that mattered. As long as they were with me, I could face anything. I took a deep breath and looked at the phone again. I knew I had to reach out to someone who would support me, even if I couldn't explain everything. I called my best friend, Sarah, who had been there for me during the good and bad moments. Her voice was the anchor I needed. Sarah, I need to tell you something. I started, my voice shaky. I paused, then just said it, the wedding's off. I can't do it. Hey, take your time, okay? What happened? Her voice was soft, but filled with concern. I exhaled a shaky breath, glancing at my daughters, still unaware of the turmoil in my heart. I had to be strong for them. I overheard something last night. Derek's been using me, Sarah. It was never about love. It was about his family's money and what they could control. I'm done. I can't go back. There was a pause, but I could hear her soft exhale on the other end. I'm so sorry, but I'm proud of you. You did the right thing. You've got this. I closed my eyes, the sting of the words from the night before still fresh. But Sarah's words anchored me. She didn't question me. She didn't try to offer false comfort. She just gave me her support, something I knew I would need a lot more of in the days to come. I don't know what I'm doing, Sarah. I feel like I'm falling apart. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. I know, but you've got to do what's best for you and for those little ones. You don't need anyone who doesn't see your worth, and I'm here to remind you of that every step of the way. I smiled through my tears, feeling a sense of strength I hadn't expected. Thank you. I hung up and spent the rest of the morning thinking about the future. The future that no longer included Derek. The future that was mine and the girls to build. I had a long road ahead. I knew that. But as I looked at my daughters, peacefully playing, I felt a surge of hope for the first time in what felt like forever. I wasn't alone. I was far from alone. And I was stronger than I had ever given myself credit for. I was going to be okay. I just had to focus on them. On us. My family was the one I had built with my own hands. The days after I left Derek's house felt like they were bleeding into each other. I could barely keep track of time, caught in the haze of shock and heartbreak. The weight of everything that had happened settled in with a dull ache that I couldn't escape. But as the days passed, my resolve began to harden. I couldn't let him get away with this, with treating me like I was nothing more than a pawn in a game he didn't even want to play. I had to stand up for myself and my children. I couldn't let him ruin our lives any more than he already had. The phone buzzed on the kitchen counter as I played with the girls. I glanced at the screen and saw Derek's name. The anger flared up instantly, but I forced myself to ignore it. I wasn't ready to hear his apologies, his excuses, or whatever manipulation he was going to try next. But then it buzzed again, and again. The calls didn't stop. My hand trembled as I answered the third one. Where are you? Derek's voice was tight, and I could hear the stress in his tone, the frustration. What the hell is going on? You just leave without saying anything? You can't just do that, not after everything. You've humiliated me, you know that? I closed my eyes for a moment, trying to steady myself. I'm not interested in listening to your excuses, Derek. I'm not interested in hearing how this is somehow my fault. Are you serious right now? He spat. I'm just trying to figure out why you didn't tell me. Why didn't you talk to me before you? I overheard you. I cut him off, my voice steady but filled with anger. I heard everything. The line went silent for a long moment, and I could almost feel his breath catching. "What?" he finally asked, sounding unsteady. "You heard me," I said, each word carefully measured, as if I were speaking to a stranger instead of the man I thought I knew. "I heard everything. About the money. About how you've been pretending. About how your parents are the ones pulling the strings. You're not the man I thought you were, and I'm not going to be part of whatever game you and your family are playing." I heard him exhale sharply. "This is bullshit. I can't believe you're doing this. You're just going to throw everything away because of something you overheard? You don't understand the pressure I'm under. This isn't just about us. It's about everything." "Then why wasn't it ever about me?" I asked, the question hitting him harder than I intended. There was a long pause. I could almost hear the shame settling in on his end of the phone. When he spoke again, it was quieter. "I didn't mean for it to be this way. I don't know what to say." "Then don't say anything," I replied coldly. "Just know that I'm done. We're done. You don't get to treat me like this and then expect me to just forgive you. This isn't about your family's money or your obligations to them. It's about us. And you made it clear there was never an us to begin with." I hung up before he could respond, the finality of the action sinking in as I stood there, my hand still gripping the phone. A strange kind of calm washed over me. I wasn't going to beg for answers. I wasn't going to listen to him twist things around. I had heard the truth, and I was done. The girls were playing quietly on the floor, their little faces innocent and unaware of the storm I had just weathered. I smiled softly at them, my heart heavy with grief, but also filled with relief. They were the reason I was moving forward. They were my future now. I gathered up a few things, not wanting to be here for a moment longer than necessary. The house that had once felt like home now felt like a cage, suffocating me with memories of what I thought my life would be. As I picked up the last of my belongings, I glanced around. This was the last time I would be here. I left without looking back. Days passed since I left Derek, and as I sat in my new, temporary home, a modest hotel room, it finally hit me. I was doing this. I was taking the first steps toward a new life, a life that wasn't dictated by someone else's expectations, their demands, or their manipulation. The morning after I left, I had sat with my daughters, their little faces full of innocence as they played in front of me. Their joy was a stark contrast to the storm raging in my heart. I had left Derek, but that didn't mean the pain had just disappeared. I hadn't expected it to, but I was ready for it. For us. The reality of what I had just done began to sink in, slowly but steadily. The life I thought I was building with Derek was a lie, and the dream wedding I had been planning was never about love. It was about obligations, about appeasing his family. But now that I had taken that first step away, I couldn't allow myself to look back. I had so many things to consider. The future of my children, first and foremost. The future of me. The future of my independence. I pulled my phone out, fingers trembling as I navigated through my contacts. I needed to make sure I was doing the right thing for us, so I called a lawyer. I didn't know where Derek stood on custody, but I had a feeling his parents weren't going to sit idly by. I needed to secure full custody of my girls. As I sat with the lawyer, discussing what was next, my mind was still clouded with emotion. But as she explained the process, the paperwork, the fight I might face, something clicked. I wasn't alone in this. I didn't have to walk this path with my back against the wall. I had options. I had power. I wasn't going to let Derek or his family pull any more strings. I had already given enough. And now, I was taking back control. The lawyer reminded me that this wasn't going to be easy. There would likely be battles ahead, both legal and emotional. I didn't want to deal with any of it, but for the sake of my daughters, I had no choice. I wasn't going to let them be pawns in some game Derek's parents played. I wouldn't let him manipulate me any longer. That night, after a long day of calls, paperwork, and decisions, I collapsed onto the bed, the weight of it all heavy on my chest. I wanted to cry. I wanted to scream. But there was something deeper within me, a resolve. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was taking steps to rebuild. The next day, I started hearing from strangers. People from Derek's family. People who knew nothing about what had happened, but felt compelled to voice their opinions. They all seemed to have the same message. You should reconsider. You're making a mistake. I wanted to throw my phone across the room. How could they judge me when they didn't know the truth? How could they dare call me selfish when I was the one left standing with nothing but my daughters and the harsh reality of what had been done to me? I didn't respond to any of them. I didn't know them anything. The only people I needed were the ones who supported me, my friends, my family, those who didn't judge me but stood by me through the storm. The ones who respected my decision, even if they didn't fully understand it. I focused on what mattered now, my girls. I made plans for their future, for our future, without Derek. I wasn't ready to face him or his family, and I certainly wasn't going to beg them for anything. They'd made their choice when they decided I wasn't good enough. Now it was my turn to decide who I wanted in my life. I wasn't going to chase their approval. I felt my strength growing, bit by bit. I could do this. I had to do this. And for the first time in days, I smiled as I watched my daughters, their laughter echoing through the room. Their happiness was all I needed. This new life? It would be ours. The restaurant was too quiet, too polished, too filled with the type of high-end energy that made my stomach twist. I wasn't sure why I agreed to meet Derek, but the nagging sense that I needed closure had pushed me to say yes. He had called me several times in the past few days, messages full of apologies, pleas, promises that things could be different, that we could make it work. I hadn't responded to any of them, but when he suggested meeting face-to-face, I couldn't completely resist. I needed to hear him out, if only to be sure I was making the right decision. When I walked in, I saw him already sitting at a corner table, his shoulders hunched as if he were waiting for something, or someone. His eyes met mine, and for a brief moment, I could almost convince myself he was the man I used to know, the man I thought I loved. But then I remembered the conversation I had overheard, the lies, the manipulation. I knew better than to fall into the same trap again. "Hey," he said as I slid into the chair across from him, his voice softer than I remembered. "Hi," I replied curtly, not sure what I was supposed to say. He leaned forward, his hands clasped in front of him. "I'm so sorry for what happened. For everything. I know I hurt you, and I regret it more than you'll ever know. I never should have let things get so out of hand. But I love you. I do. I love you and the girls, and I want to make things right." I felt a wave of anger surge through me, but I held it back. He was trying so hard, acting like nothing had happened, as if everything could just go back to normal. "I'm not here for an apology, Derek," I said, my voice steady but firm. "I'm here to hear you out, because I need to know what your plan is. But I need to be honest with you. I'm not sure we can fix this." He blinked at me, looking caught off guard, but then his face softened, and he let out a shaky breath. "I know I messed up, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes. We can go to therapy, work through this together. I still want to marry you, you know? I need time. I think we both do." I felt my chest tighten, a knot of doubt forming in the pit of my stomach. He's still saying the same things. My mind raced, processing everything I had learned over the past few days, trying to push away the memories of overheard conversations. Derek wasn't doing this because of love. He was doing it because of obligation, his parents' influence, their expectations. "Why now?" I asked, my voice low. "Why do you suddenly want to fix things? You weren't ready to marry me just a few days ago, Derek. So why are you sitting here now, pretending like you've had some kind of epiphany?" His gaze faltered for a moment, but he quickly recovered. "It's not like that. I swear. I was confused. But I've had time to think, and I want to make this work. I want to do what's best for the girls, for us." I couldn't help the small laugh that escaped my lips. "You think a joint custody arrangement is what's best for the girls?" He looked at me, confused. "What do you mean? I'm not going to let you manipulate me, Derek. You've been talking to your parents, haven't you? I can see it. You're just trying to appease them again, aren't you?" I shook my head. "I can't do this anymore. I can't keep being a part of your plan. I want my girls to have a stable life, not a life dictated by your family's money and control." His face fell, and for the first time, I saw a flash of something other than anger or frustration, guilt. Real guilt. He shifted in his seat, looking at his hands. "Look," I continued, my voice softening, but the anger still simmering just below the surface. "I'm not going to let you use me anymore. I've seen this game, Derek. I won't let you manipulate me into thinking that you're doing this for the right reasons. You're doing it because your parents are pushing you to." He opened his mouth to say something, but I held up my hand. "No, I've had enough. You don't get to pull me back in with empty promises. I know the truth now, and there's no going back." He looked up at me, his eyes filled with a mix of frustration and resignation. "I didn't want it to be this way. You have to understand, I just don't know how to make my parents happy without losing everything else." I stared at him for a long moment. the reality of everything finally sinking in. I had given him the benefit of the doubt, but I wasn't the woman who would wait around for someone else to make their decisions. My children deserved better than that. I deserved better than that. Goodbye, Derek, I said softly, standing up. You can't have it all. You can't have your parents' approval and me, not if it means sacrificing everything that should have mattered to you. I turned and walked away, not looking back. A few days after our confrontation at the restaurant, I found myself sitting across from Derek once again, this time in his lawyer's office. The air felt thick with the tension that had been simmering since our first meeting after the wedding had been called off. He had called, begged, even showed up at my door a couple of times asking for another chance. But this time, it was different. There was a lawyer involved, and his eyes no longer held the warmth I once thought was reserved for me. There was only desperation now. You can't just walk away from everything, Emma, Derek said, his voice strained. You don't understand what you're doing to the girls. You're taking everything from me. I clenched my fists in my lap. It was infuriating, hearing him still try to turn this around. As if this was about him, about what he was losing, not what I had lost. I'm not taking anything from you, I replied, my voice calm, but the anger simmered just below the surface. You're the one who chose to walk away the moment you decided to lie to me. The moment you decided that your family's wealth and their opinions meant more than our family. He shifted uncomfortably in his chair, the silence hanging between us. He had no answer to that. You say you want to be part of their lives, but your actions show otherwise, I continued. You don't get to decide this for them. You don't get to make decisions from a place of obligation and financial convenience. You don't get to say that you love us, but then treat us like a business transaction. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. You don't get it. My parents will never accept this. They'll never accept me choosing you over them. That admission hit me harder than anything else he had said. It wasn't just that he had been playing me for months. It was that he was still letting them control him. Even now, when it mattered the most, Derek couldn't stand up to his parents. And that was a betrayal I couldn't forgive. His voice grew softer, almost pleading. Emma, just hear me out. What if we do joint custody? I can't lose everything. I can't lose them too. I stared at him for a long moment, the weight of the situation finally sinking in. This wasn't just about Derek anymore. This was about my children. And if I let him back in, if I let him have any influence over their lives, I would be handing over the keys to my heart once more, only for him to hand them right back to his parents. Joint custody? I repeated, my tone filled with disbelief. No, no more compromises, Derek. I don't trust you. I don't trust your family. And I'm not going to put my children in a situation where they're used as bargaining chips for your family's approval. Derek's eyes shifted, a mix of frustration and something else, guilt, but it wasn't enough. He still wasn't fully awake to the reality of what had been done, to the depth of the betrayal. I'm sorry, but I've already made my decision, I said, standing up. I won't let you and your parents manipulate me any longer. You don't get to control me or my daughters. I'm done. His eyes hardened. You think you're the only one hurt here? You've humiliated me in front of everyone. You've made this public. I didn't want this. My heart twisted at his words, but the pain was no longer as sharp. It was more of a dull ache, the kind that comes with knowing someone's true nature. I didn't humiliate you, Derek, I said, my voice now firm and unwavering. You did this to yourself. You betrayed me, and I won't be part of it anymore. You don't get to play the victim here. The finality in my voice seemed to register. For a moment, he just stared at me, looking lost. Then his face contorted in frustration. You'll regret this, he spat. You'll regret walking away from me. From us. But I didn't flinch. I wasn't the same person I was when I walked into this room. I won't regret it, I said softly. And neither will my daughters. They deserve better than a life dictated by lies and manipulation. I turned and walked out of the office, feeling a strange sense of relief flood over me as the door closed behind me. I wasn't walking away from my family. I was walking toward a new one. A better one. The drive home was silent, but it wasn't empty. I had made my choice. And though the road ahead was uncertain, it was one I knew I could walk with my girls by my side. The apartment was smaller than the house Derek and I had planned to share. But somehow it felt like home. The walls were bare, but there was a sense of calm that I hadn't known in a long time. It was just me and my girls, the three of us against the world. My parents had been a huge support, offering help whenever they could. They understood the importance of me starting over, of finding my strength and reclaiming my independence. The first few days had been hard, figuring out where to start, what to do, how to even move forward, but now I was finding my footing. I had hired a full-time nanny to help with the girls during the day. It wasn't just about having someone else look after them. It was about ensuring I could keep moving forward, find stability, and continue to work without being overwhelmed. I was building the life I'd always wanted, one where I was in control, where I could provide for my children without fear or manipulation. The first time I looked at my bank account and saw the money I had left over after paying the bills, I felt a sense of pride. I had never been the one to control finances before. Derek had always taken care of it, but now I was making decisions for myself, for us. The relief was almost overwhelming. One afternoon, as I was sorting through some old papers while the girls napped, my phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. I already knew who it was before I even looked. Derek. I had made the decision to cut all ties with him. No more back and forth, no more apologies, no more manipulation. But he still tried. Every few days, there would be a text or a missed call. Usually, I ignored it. But this time, I picked up. Emma, please. His voice was familiar, but strained. I just need to know if you're okay. I want to help. I'm offering you something, anything to make this right. I closed my eyes, letting out a long breath. I was so tired of hearing him. His words were empty now. He wasn't offering me help. He was offering me control. He wanted to ease his guilt, not really make things better for us. I'm doing just fine, Derek. I'm more than okay. And I don't need your help, I said, my voice calm but firm. I can offer you money, he persisted. I can make sure everything is taken care of for you, for the girls. Please, don't shut me out. I felt a sharp pang in my chest at his words, but it wasn't sadness. It was disgust. He thought that by throwing money at me, he could fix everything. As if I could be bought. As if my daughters could be bought. No, I said firmly. I've worked hard to get where I am right now. I don't need your money, Derek. I don't need you. And I'm not going back to that life. There was a pause on the other end of the line, and then a frustrated sigh. Emma, I'm not the same person anymore. I've changed. I want to make this work. I couldn't even pretend to consider it. No, Derek, you haven't changed. You're still doing this for them. For your parents. Not for us, not for me. And I'm done with that. I've made my choice, and I'm not going back on it. I hung up before he could respond. The phone sat there in my hand for a moment, and I felt the weight of everything I'd just said. I wasn't looking for closure from him anymore. I was done looking for answers that would never come. I put my phone down and walked into the living room, where the girls were playing with their toys, giggling as they piled blocks on top of each other. I watched them for a moment, my heart swelling with love for them, and realized how far I'd come. I was no longer waiting for someone to save me. I was saving myself. I sat down on the floor with them, scooping them up and hugging them close, feeling a sense of peace I hadn't felt in a long time. Derek might still be out there, trying to fix things, trying to get me to return to the life he had imagined for us. But that life was no longer mine. I had found something far better, freedom, independence, and a future that was mine to build. And as I kissed my daughter's foreheads, I knew that whatever came next, we would be okay. We had each other. And that was all that mattered. It had been 6 months since I left Derek, 6 months since I made the hardest decision of my life. The days still felt long sometimes, but there was a peace I had never known before, especially in the quiet mornings as I watched my daughters play in the living room. The pain of the past had faded into something more manageable, something I could look back on without fear or regret. The apartment I moved into was modest but warm. It was everything I needed and more: space for my girls to grow, a place where I could breathe freely without constantly wondering what would happen next. My parents had been incredibly supportive, helping me navigate the transition and making sure I didn't feel alone. I wasn't. Not anymore. I had my family, my friends, and my girls, who were more than enough. I had hired a full-time nanny to help with the girls during the day. It wasn't that I couldn't handle everything on my own. It was more that I needed the time to focus on rebuilding my life, both for myself and for them. Working from home wasn't always easy, but I found that I thrived in the balance. The girls were happy, and so was I. Derek had reached out several times, calls, texts, messages through mutual friends, but I had made it clear, again and again, that I wasn't interested in anything he had to offer. I didn't need his money or his apologies. I needed my independence. I needed to show my daughters what it meant to be strong, what it meant to stand up for yourself when the world tried to tear you down. It wasn't just the emotional toll I had to recover from. It was the financial strain, the fear that I wouldn't be able to provide for my girls on my own. But with every small victory, every bill paid, every decision I made without hesitation, my confidence grew. I was doing this. I was proving to myself that I could build a future that wasn't tied to the past, to Derek's influence, to his family's control. One afternoon, as I sat at the kitchen table, balancing work with planning the next week's groceries, my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen and saw Derek's name again. My stomach clenched for a moment before I pushed the phone aside. It was the same pattern, apologizing, pleading, promising that he had changed. I didn't need to hear it. But then something strange happened. The buzz continued, one message after another. My hand hovered over the phone, the urge to look at the screen strong. What could he possibly say this time? My phone beeped again, and I finally decided to read what he had sent. It wasn't a plea or a reminder of his feelings. It was a legal document, a text message from his lawyer, stating that Derek was formally signing away his parental rights. The text was brief, but the words were clear. Derek has decided to relinquish all rights and responsibilities concerning the children, effective immediately. For a second, I was stunned. The finality of it hit me all at once. It wasn't just about custody anymore. It wasn't even about the heartbreak. This was Derek's ultimate abandonment, and it was official. He was giving up on us completely. I sat there for a long time, the phone in my hand, staring at the words on the screen. There was no more indecision, no more false hope. Derek had made his choice, and now I had to make mine. I closed the phone and placed it on the table, my heart heavy with the finality of everything. But as I sat there, surrounded by the laughter of my daughters, I felt something else too. Relief. It was over. For the first time, I realized that I didn't need his approval. I didn't need him to decide anything for me. I was the one who had chosen this life, who had built it on my own terms. I didn't need Derek's presence, his money, or his promises. I had everything I needed in the family I had created, the one that was strong and whole without him. The phone buzzed again, but I didn't pick it up. Instead, I turned to my daughters, who were now playing with their toys at my feet, their giggles filling the room. "Mommy's here," I whispered softly to myself. "And we're going to be just fine." The rest of the day passed slowly, but there was a peace in the air that I hadn't known in years. The phone messages from Derek and his family were all but forgotten, buried beneath the reality I was building. I was moving forward, no longer tied to a man who didn't understand love, no longer controlled by a family that never saw me for who I truly was. I had built this new life for my daughters, for myself, and I was proud of it. It wasn't perfect. There were still challenges ahead, but I knew I was ready for them. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was living, and I was stronger than I had ever been. My girls and I, we had a future, together, and that was all that mattered. As the days passed, I began to realize that the chapter with Derek was truly closed. The wounds were healing, the hurt slowly fading. I was ready for whatever came next, but it was a future of my own making, a future full of love, of hope, and of new beginnings. I looked down at my daughters, who were now chasing each other around the room, their laughter light and carefree. I smiled. The road ahead wasn't always going to be easy, but for the first time in a long time, I knew one thing for sure. I was exactly where I was meant to be.